I'm Heather. After many wasted years trying outdated approaches to my daughter's addiction that felt wrong to me, harmed our relationship, and didn't help my daughter, I finally found an effective, evidence-based approach that repaired my relationship with her, helped me create my own peace of mind, and made me an ally in my daughter's recovery. I teach you a loving and compassionate approach to help you encourage change and create connection. Addiction impacts the entire family system. Family recovery is the answer. Hi, everybody. So it's been a little while since I've recorded an episode. I'm excited to share this one with you today, though. I met today's guest, Victoria Starr, through my friend Kim last month, and it was like just the right time because I really needed the breathwork class that she was offering. And I'm sure you've noticed if you're a regular listener that I have not done many podcasts in the last 2 months. The end of September and October were just very tough months for me. My grief about my daughter, Helena, got pretty intense, and it was having a physical effect on how I felt. I was in a lot of pain, and I was getting migraines every day, feeling pain in my body. I had this like catch between my shoulder blades that I could not get rid of. I felt exhausted and depleted, and I just felt like a battery that couldn't get charged anymore. And when that happens, my creativity goes out the window too. So I just don't even try to force it. And I was able to record that one episode in October because I had come up with the idea and the outline for it while I was on vacation. So I had to get a little creative energy while I was in a different space. But when I got home, I kind of lost that creative energy. And the day that I recorded that podcast, I sat outside for a couple of hours first, just staring at the birds. And I got motivated and excited, and I felt the energy to record the podcast, and I was in a really good mood. And that's the kind of energy I want to bring to the podcast. And so I was happy that happened that day, but then the next day it was just, that feeling came back and I was really struggling. So I made this decision that wasn't going to do anything extra. I was just going to focus on my clients and support myself through that period and just allow myself to experience that low energy and heavy emotions. But the week that I met Victoria, the physical pain was really getting to me. I'd gone to a sound bath, which if you listen to this podcast, you know I love sound baths. I had received energy healing. I'd gone to the chiropractor, but I was still in a lot of pain, especially I just could not get that whatever it was between my shoulder blades would not release. And I signed up for one of Victoria's online breathwork classes with my friend. And when we were done, I'm not even exaggerating a little, all of that pain was gone. My muscles had relaxed. I had released a ton of emotions, and I had realized some painful things that I wasn't acknowledging, which was another part of helping me move forward. And I could just take full deep breaths again. I mean, I was exhausted when it was over, and I was ready to go to bed after that. But as soon as I was done, I knew that I had to share this with you guys, especially with the holidays coming up. I mean, it's a great way to de-stress from everyday life. But with the holidays coming, I know that brings on more stress. So I think this is great timing to share her with you. And another part of that is being able to create peace of mind. And breathwork brings you into the present moment. And that's where the most peace is available to us. My hardest moments now as I'm dealing with my grief about the loss of Helena, and before when she was alive and I was trying to support her through her substance use and through her recovery, The hardest moments were my judgments about the past or wanting the past to be different, and my fears and projections about the future. Like both of those things cause a lot of pain. So I really appreciate tools like breath work that keep me in the peace of the present moment. So let me tell you a little bit about Victoria before I start the episode, because I'm pretty impressed with her background. She's got done some amazing endurance events. But she's a certified master breathwork facilitator. Her mission and passion lies in the ability to guide others through the power of their breath, to focus on their internal frequency, raise their vibration, and create a community through connection to elevate the energy of the world. After growing a thriving career in fitness and athletics, and competing in everything from CrossFit to 6 Ironman races, the Boston Marathon, and even ultra marathons, Victoria felt something was missing deep down. Then one day she found breathwork. Through breathwork, Victoria was able to release deep childhood trauma, let go of emotional trauma from abusive relationships, and calm chronic overwhelm and anxiety. These profound shifts in healing completely changed her life and led her to pursue breathwork as a new career. Victoria now creates supportive communal experiences for humans to rediscover themselves. Her guided 3-part breathwork experiences are specifically designed to quiet the noise so you can listen for the life burning in your soul, a life of limitless imagination. Everything you need to keep going is living inside of you. Sometimes you need help shifting or sifting through the noise. When we are most in tune with our souls, that overflow becomes its own gift, its own service to the world, raising that energy and vibration all around us to create a positive ripple effect. I hope you enjoy this episode and give breathwork a try like I did. Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for taking the time to record this podcast episode with me today and share this information with the audience.
Absolutely, Heather. Thank you for allowing me to be here and sharing my passion.
So let's start with what breathwork is and how the reset breathwork that you do is different from other breathwork.
Yes. So I love this question because there are so many different modalities to breathwork, but knowing that breathwork is a variety of breathing techniques that can be used to improve a person's mental health, their physical health, their emotional health, their spiritual health. It can bring about senses of physical relaxation, bring about clarity of the mind, peace of mind. It helps to release stress, overwhelm, anxiety. And it really allows us to tap into our internal soul, our internal being, and tap into our own universe within. So knowing that the roots of breathwork, they've been around for thousands of years. So there's so many different modalities to breathwork, but know that the breathwork has its basis in the yogic traditions in the Indian culture, so that it really has a long foundation and longevity of just this beautiful rhythm of what our bodies can do. And so I really like to tap into, it's a universal energy and it connects us all together. So that's what breathwork is for me. And that's how I see breathwork. Now, the modality that I facilitate is called the reset breathwork method. What it is guided through a meditative state set with an intention for either the group container or an individual person. I guide you along a musical journey. Each playlist is separate and it's held in a safe environment, in a safe container. And I use affirmations to give you, the breather, the container to tap into the nervous system and to reset that nervous system. So it's a conscious, connected breathing pattern, helping to reset the nervous system and to bring an elevated state of being into the body.
Which is exactly why I wanted to have you on the podcast today, because just When parents have a child struggling with substances, there's so much fear that they have to work through, and sometimes a lot of chaos. And, the things that you mentioned are so important, like how it connects us all together. I love that because an important part of what I offer on this podcast is ways to stay in connection with your child, no matter whether they're in recovery or actively using substances. And you mentioned relieving stress, anxiety, giving you clarity and peace of mind. Like that's exactly what every parent that's going through this needs. And it's such an easy way for them to give that to themselves. So how does breath work get you out of fight or flight? Because a lot of parents I work with, that's one of their biggest struggles is just being in that constant fear of what bad thing is going to happen next to their child. And then maybe explain the difference between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system as part of that.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing this awareness into your community too. Like it's such a beautiful gift, and it's a gift that we have within ourselves that we can do, that we don't have to like buy things or attach to things. Like we have it within ourselves to be able to do this. So coming back to our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors, our emotions, they're all part of our subconscious. And most of what we have learned and what we have been programmed happened by the time we were 7 years old. But also knowing that within our subconscious, there also lies generational stuff, generational trauma. So we're holding a lot within our body. And as adults and as parents, like we sometimes have to be on that quick trigger, on that quick response. But that's predominantly living on past experiences and emotions that we have been programmed to. So if we've had trauma that's happened as a kid and it creates this fear or this anxiety or this sensation in the body that doesn't feel so good, most generally 95% of the time we're living on that just subconscious level where it's just an automatic pattern. So you asked, how does breathwork help to get out of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic? What I want to refer back to is the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight. So we're triggered, or we're running from a bear, or there's some sort of internal response within our body. Our ego mind's like, holy crap, we need to get out of here. So that is our sympathetic nervous system. Okay. Our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. It's our opportunity to create the calm and to slow down and to just be. And I say just be so that we can be in this present moment and we can be in that state of calm, in that state of just peacefulness. So with the breath work that I facilitate, the reset breath work, it has the opportunity to release those learned responses that happen when we are 7 years old of our subconscious. And it helps to activate our nervous system so that we can rewire those pathways that were learned that were probably not so good for us. But in this breath practice, we can rewire those pathways so that we don't have that state of fear, overwhelm, stress, trauma, all the stuff of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it pairs really well with like when I first started working, like learning about my thoughts, feelings, and actions, and how most of us really do live in our subconscious rather than being intentional. And I was learning to meditate at the same time. And so I think that really helped me be able to move through it faster, being able to work through it on both levels. So hitting it from the being really intentional with my thoughts, feelings, and actions, and then also working on it from the perspective of doing energy healing and meditating, and now learning breath work. It really, I felt like it helped me move things out of my body. Like I'd spent so many years numbing myself And I hated emotions. Like I was an accountant. I loved numbers because they're safe and predictable and they don't have feelings. And I didn't want to have any feelings either. So they were just all stored in my body and eventually made me feel horrible. I felt sick all of the time. And like when things were really bad with my daughter, sometimes I would wake up the next morning just kind of feeling like I'd been in a car accident or something because all those feelings were just stuck in my body. So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, one, what stored emotions in the body feel like, and then how something like breath work helps you move those stored emotions through your body.
So, stored emotions in the body, what does it feel like? It's different for everyone, but as a society, we breathe from our chest. If you walk around, if you just take a gander at people as they breathe, they're most generally breathing from their mouth. And know that breathing from your mouth is that overwhelm, that anxiety, and it's really tightening our chest. So like you've probably felt it in yourself before. Like when you're stressed, you're breathing from right here. You're not breathing from the diaphragm. So in actuality, you can think of it like a little balloon. So when you inflate a balloon, there's no air going into your lungs because you're breathing from here. But if you focus on breathing from your diaphragm, you can fully inflate that balloon. So that's one trigger in your mind. I don't want to use the word trigger, but connection that you are breathing and where you're breathing from. So that's an opportunity to see where in your body you're feeling that. But most generally, I feel it comes from emotions. Although when I do breathe in this pattern, I can feel the emotion in my body, but it's not prior to. Unless like, how we walk around and our shoulders are shrugged and like we feel that tension in our shoulders. That's what trauma can feel like. That's what the overwhelm and the anxiety can feel like in the body. So witnessing, really tapping into the present moment of where are you? Is your mind constantly on the swirl of the monkey mind of thinking of all the things I need to do and living in the past and the road rage and all the shit that happens? Or are you able to tap into like being right here, looking out at the beauty of nature, tapping into the beautiful smile of your child, or really focusing on like what emotion is present in this room? So that's how I recognize the feeling of trauma in my body. And knowing that also our society likes to take every emotion and shove it under the rug and like not deal with it. And either we'll deal with it later or we never get back to it. So it just kind of stockpiles on our body. And that's when we have the explosion or the whatever happens within us. And we get mad at somebody that really, really didn't deserve it.
So when I did my first breath work, so the breath work that I did with you was the first time I ever like officially did a breath work class. And what I was experiencing before that was I was having a lot of pain in my neck and shoulders and back. Mm-hmm. And my body was aching. Like I was really struggling to process the amount of grief that I was experiencing. I've been able to process it most of the time, but like during the month of October, it just was coming so fast and heavy. I couldn't. And so it was causing like aches and pains in my body. And it was like I couldn't get a deep breath. And I could feel it all just building up in my body. Like, if you think about like a river flowing freely or having a dam, like I could feel that dam and everything was just building up. And then after the breath work, like I could just feel that I had released so much and I could breathe again. And even a lot of I'd gone to the chiropractor several times. I was stretching, massages, doing all this stuff to get rid of this. I had this like catch between my shoulder blades that I just could not get rid of. And it was gone after we did that breath work. Like I released so much stuff. And so that's what made me want to share this, was because it's so easy to get so much emotion just stuck in our body because, like you said, we shove it under the rug and we don't want to feel it or we don't know how to. And to me, that's almost like a fast track way to figure out how to process emotion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely can feel that. I loved witnessing your transformation that happened when you did breathe. not knowing your story, just being in the container with you and holding space for you, that was safe. And thank you for allowing me and honoring me to guide you through that too, because that is heavy. And through the breath, like we have, and here's this quote keeps coming to mind, and I want to share it with you because it's so, like, for me, it just resonates so much. And it's by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard about him, but he's pretty freaking rad. Dr. Joe Dispenza, in case anybody doesn't know, he's a Bachelor of Science. He's a doctor of chiropractic. His postgraduate is in the field of neuroscience, neuroplasticity, epigenetics, mind-body medicine, and the brain-heart coherence. So his quote that just deeply resonates with me is, thoughts are language of the brain, feelings are language of the body. So again, thoughts are language of the brain. So what we think gets patterned in the brain, in our subconscious, and then feelings are language of the body. So when we have an emotion from a thought, it gets stored in our body. So for you, it was stored in you said your left shoulder, your scapula, in between your shoulder blades. And so that's where your body likes to hold tension. So like being able to breathe. So knowing too, like prior to the breathwork experience, how were you breathing? Were you in your chest? Then knowing that in this breathing method, you're expanding your lungs. So truly you're stretching your intercostals, you're lengthening your spine, you're creating more space physically in the body, but yet you're also tapping into where that emotion lies within the body. And it's kind of like a floodgate, like you said, like you get to flood it right through. You get to move through it. And through the positive affirmations that are included in there, you get to rewire the brain. So it's all that mind-body connection that is beautiful in this breathwork modality.
Yeah, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. He was my first introduction to meditating. So when I found coaching and started working on my thoughts, feelings, and actions, I was doing his Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that was what introduced me into meditating. And I was so amazed with his backstory too. I didn't even really understand the book the first time I read it. I think if I read it now, I'd have a totally different understanding, but I just knew that I needed to try it. So I did everything in the book and I listened to his meditation that comes with it. And I, did that whole process all the way through. And it was pretty life-changing.
I am celebrating you big, Heather, because that is commitment. For me, that shows that like you are dedicated to healing and moving through this, and you're going to do whatever it takes to do that. So, and it's for you. Yeah. I mean, this gift is for you so that you can be a better human for those around you, to create that ripple effect of energy that is supportive for other people. So I'm celebrating you big for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And it's important for me too, to do that work when you're trying to work with people and support them through really heavy stuff as well. Then you have to work on yourself even more to be able to support people through that. So you also mentioned that breath work helps us rewire our brain from trauma and stuck emotions that don't serve us. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So like I said, our brain, our subconscious, is pretty much created by the time we're 7 years old. Anything that's happened. And then so as an adult, we start running on these autopilots. And then we live in the past. So our ego mind comes in. It likes the patterns. It likes the structures. It likes to keep us safe. It likes to be in control. There's nothing wrong with the ego mind, but that's just what it does. So when we go through life on this autopilot, we're not experiencing the glory and the beauty that's out there. We're not living in the present moment. We're living in the past. We're living in those past emotions and behaviors. So like for me, I want to share, Heather, like I came from an emotional trauma background as a child, and it manifested through relationships. And I was so stuck in this conditioned way of being. And it was through a Dr. Joe meditation and breath work where I literally saw my soul behind bars, shaking the bars, going, get me the fuck out of here. Like I'm so stuck. Like life can't be like this. There's got to be so much more. So being consistent with breath work and having people hold space for me that I felt that I was safe, and rewiring the neurons, the neural pathways in my brain through positive affirmations and this breath practice, like I was able to freaking break free of the bars, to allow my soul to shine and be able to be who my soul came here on this earth to be. Like it has been such a spiritual awakening and it's given me full body goosebumps right now, but it's truly what has changed and shifted the way I see life. I mean, it's amazing now. So the scientific part of this is that through this breath practice, we come into the sympathetic nervous system. So I guide you into a breathing pattern that guide you into that sympathetic, that rest or that fight or flight, to where I take you in a safe, controlled time, in a safe, controlled space to this peak performance. And then I bring you back down in the breathing pattern into the parasympathetic nervous system, to where that you are guided through these affirmations like, I'm safe in my body. I am safe to be loved. I let go of all the past. I let go. So the affirmations are really centered around what that person needs. I am enough. I am worthy. I am growing into my soul's desires. So through the breath journey, we come back down the parasympathetic nervous system into that rewiring of that pathway over and over. It's kind of like a super highway, so that we can reset and repattern our brain. And the feel goods about this breathing practice too, Heather, is that it releases such a chemical positive relief and release in our body that our body wants to do it again so that we can feel that again. So it releases dopamine, it releases melatonin, it releases what's called DMT so that we can experience oxytocin. So there's so much scientific to this that it's not woo-woo. It's really like a practice of resetting what's inside of you.
Yeah. And it's so important to reprogram that autopilot intentionally. And I think that when you pair thought work with something like breath work, it makes it that much easier to reprogram. And I think about it like some thoughts that we think are like super highways in our brain, and they take a lot more work to reprogram. But if we put in the work and we're really intentional, then our new autopilot has been programmed by us. So it's like an upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and we can keep doing that. And that was what I'm glad that I discovered, like doing things like that together could help me grow even faster.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes.
So how is breath work different than meditating, or is it similar?
It's definitely different than meditating. Although there are some similarities, the meditating I found for me was hard for me when I was in that angst state, that overwhelm, that anxiety, to sit still and to ground, even for 5 minutes. And then I felt like a failure when I wasn't doing it. And so that's just my experience with meditating. The difference that I felt with breath work was the fact that somebody was holding space for me. So my masculine energy liked that accountability, but also through breath work, we're rewiring those pathways within the brain scientifically within the body itself. Whereas for my understanding, meditating is the thoughts. So again, it comes back to the thoughts and the feelings, Joe Dispenza's quote. So we're rewiring the thoughts in the brain and releasing those stored emotions in the body to create new.
Yeah. So, yeah. And what you mentioned about how hard it is to meditate sometimes, and before my daughter died, I meditated quite a bit. So I was experienced at it, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And the week before I had done the breath work with you, everybody knows I love sound baths. I talk about them all the time. I've been to a sound bath. I'd gotten energy healing. I'd been to the chiropractor. I'd done all the things and I was still struggling. Like there was something about the breath work that helped me to move out that really intense emotion that was trapped between my shoulder blades. And I felt so relieved. I was exhausted when we were done, but the relief was just, and like you mentioned, I was feeling all of those feelings, like it elevated my mood. I'd been really in kind of a low place. It just lifted me up enough that I could also help myself as well.
I love that. And I'm going to bring clarity to that. I think this is such a fun scientific fact that our lungs are the only voluntary and involuntary organ in our body. So our lungs allow us to get that tap into our nervous system through, scientific geeky gets us into the vagus nerve and the powerful use of the diaphragm through the breath that activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm, through the vagus nerve into the deep parts of the subconscious mind. So that's all the scientific geeky stuff. But also, like you said, like it's the shit that we carry that we don't know, that breath work helps us to. Maybe we didn't even know that we were holding on to this experience from the past. But in reality, like it's stored in the body. So through breath work, we get to move it out. We get to move through it and create more space within our body to become more present. Yeah.
Yeah. And your body remembers even if your brain doesn't.
Exactly.
So you can be experiencing, there was something that happened in October. I'm still not sure what it was, but just kind of set off this chain of events in my body. And I don't even have to know what it was. I was just experiencing it. And I knew it like happened in a split second. It was something about to do with football in the colder weather. We had just had a hurricane come through. And it just like my brain just switched into this, oh my gosh, at this time last year, Helena had only like 6 weeks left to live. And it just started something that was like, I couldn't control with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love sharing this kind of stuff, because I think it's so important. And when parents are dealing with a child's substance use, it's like something that we have to learn to live with. It's not going anywhere. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I was thinking, like with your background with endurance events, that how your mindset is a really big part of that, in addition to your physical health. And then also like controlling your breathing through those events. And it reminded me of like really what parents are going through, how important it is to have that same approach to this life of living with a child's substance use, that same, how you had to approach an endurance event. So can you share a little bit about pacing yourself and the mental part of getting through those? You did like Ironmans, and which there was an ultra marathon. Was the other one? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done 6 Ironman, 6 regular open marathons, and an ultra marathon, which was 122 miles. So coming back to the breath and coming back to the mindset, for me, it was full circle moment to, it's a mindset, it's the breath, and it's also a visualization. So it's coming back to the senses of the body and becoming super grounded. Again, I'm giving myself full body chills. So like the visualization of doing the event, like what happens if this goes wrong, or what happens if this goes right? So the visualization was beautiful. The getting grounded into the space where the event was allowed me to tap even deeper into the event. And then the mindset of, I am a generator, so I love structure. I love checklists and all those things. So the mindset was fulfilled by the generator of like, okay, I have all these things done and completed. And it's that positive mindset of like, okay, this could go wrong, but what's plan B or what's plan C? So that fulfilled that aspect. And then the breathing part of it, Heather, was like some of my I've had really great events and I've had really shitty events. And I noticed the difference where I was fully tapped into the present of my breath and of the moment. I want to share a story that just came to me is that one of my fastest Ironman bike events, I was literally biking on the course with many people around, and I was floating above myself, witnessing myself biking along the lake where the course was. So I knew I was fully present, and like I was so calm and at peace in that moment that my breath was just like, it was in a state of flow. Now, I do want to pure transparency here. And these events, endurance events, this was before I tapped into breathwork. So knowing what I know now, my goal is to do another ultra marathon and to change my breathing pattern in a different form so that I can stay more regulated throughout the longevity of the event. Because I know that because these events are so long that like we have the highs and lows, and being okay with that too. So it's the body integration, it's the mind integration, it's the breath integration for the entirety of it.
I love that, being okay with the highs and lows, because that's really just what our life experience is anyway. Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned several times how being with your breath can bring you into the present moment. And it's so hard when you have a child struggling with substance use to be in the present moment and not be in the past where you're thinking about where things went wrong, or in the future when you're predicting all the things that might go wrong. So I appreciate that you've said several times how breathwork brings you into the present moment, because that's the only place where there's any peace.
Exactly. Like we have no control of what happened in the past. The past is the past. And again, that's that rumination of the subconscious. And then the control of the future, we don't have any control of that either. So it's finding that balance of like being somewhere in the middle. And like, I don't have it all together all the time, but I'm able to witness sooner within my body, sooner within my thoughts and my emotions in my body that, okay, you are either in the past, this old cycle's coming up, or you're trying to predict the future, which you know you don't have any control over. So it's through the breath and through breath work and just being able to recognize sooner within life where you're out of the alignment. So, and holding space for you too, Heather, for what you and other parents have had to go through. I have no concept of that pain that feels, and knowing that it's an immense amount of stuff and trauma that's within your body. So holding space for all of you to heal through that is like, I'm sending you, and I'm a conduit to everything I have to help you move through.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that everybody who's listening could use that extra support too. So is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you think is important to share?
No, but I do have a story that I would love to share about a client. All right. So I have facilitated nationwide from South Florida to van festivals in the Southwest and to North Idaho. And I also do it virtually. And each experience is different. Each session is different. I come with each journey with a different intention. So when I was in South Florida at a yoga studio, I made some connections with some beautiful people and holding space for them in person at a yoga studio. And through time, I got to know this divine, beautiful soul that she was there. And she experienced, I'm going to say, 3 sessions with me prior to sharing this journey with me that she had been on. But her testimonial is so profound. Prior to coming into breathwork, she could not hear out of her her right ear. She could not hear. So it was from seizures, from trauma, and she had to read lips or have a hearing device. She had shingles, and it was just like her body, it's the immune system like shutting down because of all the shit that she had stored within her body. And everything within her, gosh, this reflection is just coming through to me, is that She could still hear out of her right ear, but couldn't hear out of her left ear. Everything on her left side, her feminine side, was shut down. So coming to my breathwork practices, like for 3 times before she shared this with me, I did know that she couldn't hear. We talked about her seizures prior too. So I just had her alter her breathing a little bit. But she shared with me afterward that her shingles were gone. She could hear out of her left ear, did not have to read lips anymore, and did not have to have a hearing device. She is able to move through the emotional pain so much easier. Not that life isn't hard and we have stuff that comes up, but she's just able to recognize when she's holding her breath, to be more mindful of checking in with her breath. But also what she shared with me too, Heather, is that from the seizure, she had sold her car. She hadn't been driving for years. And after those sessions, she was able to buy a car and to drive herself around so that she could experience nature on her own, so that she could have dates with herself, so she could fill her own cup. And she related to me that breath was the key for her to keep moving. Breath work was the key for her to keep moving. Tapping into what her body was feeling kept her moving forward. So the transformation that happened with her just gives me full body chills. And I just love her dearly because she has changed and transformed so much that there is power and there is growth in the breath. It's just, are you willing to get out of your own way to expand and to transform and to heal?
Yeah, that is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It just goes to show what stored emotions in our body can do. I mean, there's so many unexplained illnesses that people experience. And the last thing that I felt like doing the night that I did the breathwork class with you was doing that class. Mm-hmm. But I knew that if I didn't do it, if I didn't do something different, that nothing was going to change. And I was just going to keep feeling crappy. And it was worse than I was having migraines every day. I mean, it was really having an effect on my quality of life, a huge effect. And it's just a reminder, like you said, like we have to show up for ourselves. And what does it hurt to try something new, even just once, right? Like, I'm so glad I tried it. I don't know why I never tried it before, but it just was perfect timing, I guess, for that you had that class coming up and a friend told me about it.
All in an alignment and your due timing when you're open and willing. I want to tap into a quote from James Nestor. He wrote the book Breathe. His quote is, "Something else happens when we practice these techniques willingly. When we consciously push our bodies into these states for a few minutes, sometimes hours or days. I don't recommend hours or days, but in some cases, they can radically transform lives. It's just the gift of giving yourself the time to get to the other side." Now, I ad-libbed a little bit on his quote, but I mean, it's really, you are so fucking worth it.
Yeah.
You're so worth it. You are so worth the healing. You are so worth the transformation. Life gets to be beautiful if you allow it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really just so important to show up for yourself. Like, give yourself that gift. I'm going to put Victoria's contact information in the show notes so that you can sign up, find her on social media and follow her, and then sign up for her email list, because that's how you get the schedule for your online breathwork sessions, because that's how I did it, was through Zoom. It does not have to be in person. It was, like I explained, extremely effective doing it through Zoom. It was a great experience. So I'll put your contact information for that in the show notes so that people can find you. And thank you again so much for sharing your time with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather. And thank you for the testimonial of it being on Zoom too, and how it felt in your body and how you were able to move through stuff that was stuck that you didn't even know that was there.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do powerful things on Zoom too now.
Yes, absolutely. My gift, my honor, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, go to heatherrosscoaching.com. If you want to help other parents who are struggling with a child's addiction, you can do it 2 different ways. First, you can share the podcast with them directly, or you can share it on your social media. Second, you can leave a review. Talk to you next week.